coaches are in. When you need a timely, transparent friend, tune into the coaches are in. Talking career, business, health, and wealth. You've got a friend. Tune into the coaches are in. With authenticity, come on, let's take a seat and tune in.
Well, hello there.
Hello, Missy. How are you, Dr. Cherita?
I am well. How are you?
You know what? I want the audience to know I dance my way into this show. You know what I'm saying? When we say tune in, okay, I'm like, yes. So, we need something, right? So,
Yes.
yes. How are you doing?
I am doing well. It's
You look
Monday.
good.
Oh, thank you. We're trying to age gracefully over here.
Come on here. You better say it, okay?
Yes. So we are here, and let me just kick it off by saying that if your son is disengaged, resistant, or checked out when it comes to reading and writing, you need to know that it is not a school problem to a certain extent, because you know schools these days, but it's not an intelligence problem either. But it is a sign of something deeper, and our guest today knows what that sign is, what it means, and what to do about it. So I can't wait to bring her on in just a few so we can dive into that, because we are moms of boys.
Moms of boys. Yes, that is so true.
Yes. But
unapologetically.
Yes, unapologetic. Now I do got my girl in there, you know, the oldest, who thinks she's the boss of all the boys. But
she is the boss. In her mind, she is the boss.
In her mind, not in their mind.
And I have the pleasure of sharing her not as a daughter, but a goddaughter. And so therefore, I didn't get to have daughters, but I have goddaughters. And she was the first one. So yes.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know who we are, we'll just quickly introduce ourselves, and then we'll dive right into the topic for tonight. So I am Dr. Cherita Weatherspoon. I am an operations strategist and alignment coach, and I work with career professionals, primarily Black women, but I do work with other people to help them launch and grow their businesses. And I do some other stuff as well.
Yes.
But we just only
right. I am Dr. Malaika Turner, and like Dr. Cherita, I do a lot of things, but at this point, I see myself as a reinvention strategist who is helping to empower women over 50 as they move into their second act, right? I want them to step into the second act with a level of greatness.
Yes, and then we are missing one of our co-hosts this evening, Coach Allison.
Coach Allison, we love you. We miss you.
Yeah, I guess we do. She traveling again. This is one of your jobs, ma'am.
she is our traveler. That is for sure.
She is. Absolutely. But she's traveling for business. She ain't on the beach this time. So
right.
We'll let it slide. I'm not jealous this time. In Minnesota.
Yes.
All right. So Malaika, can you go ahead and introduce our guest for this evening?
I'd be glad to. So Alexis Dobbins, she is a coach for African-American male teens working to increase their interest in literacy and helping them view reading as a way to find their voice and purpose. We all believe in purpose, right? She uses transformative materials to show connections between literacy and freedom, both personal and institutional, and models for parents how to supplement literacy goals at home. So everybody get ready. We have Miss Alexis Dobbins, who is coming with us today on this episode. Hello, Miss Dobbins.
Hello. How are you? Glad to be here.
Yes, we are glad you're here. This is a wonderful topic.
It
Yes.
is very dear to I'm you guys were talking earlier. I'm also a male dad, boy dad, grown man, mom, excuse me, grown men, mother of 2 boys. So, there's something that's a little bit different about them. There's something that's just a little bit, um, girls are wonderful, but when you're raising young men, there's just something that tugs at your heart in a different way. And so my guys are grown, but I work with young men every day, and every um, there's just something that I want them to have their power and their voice and to be able to be authentic in 2026.
That's good. That's good. Well, how about we start out with some questions? Let's
Okay.
kind of dig deep and see what we can uncover.
Okay.
So you describe your work as coaching African American males, male teens, to view reading as a way to find their voice and their purpose, right? That's a very different way of looking at literacy. So how did you develop this particular perspective?
Well, my master's thesis, I focused on academic engagement of young Black males who were raised in mother-led households. Because there were, I don't want to say issues, but there were concerns about, and I'm speaking broadly, but broadly there were issues about academic achievement for young Black males, particularly in urban settings who were in homes with just their mother. I moved from teaching history, which is probably the subject that I like the best. But I moved from history about 4 or 5 years ago to teaching government. And government in Maryland is now a testable subject. It's a subject that we test students. It is required for graduation. And so it is more fixed, more, I don't want to say rigid, but in some ways it is rigid because you are following a curriculum that's pretty much been established for you. And I began to see young Black males that I knew were bright. I knew they were one-on-one. We could just talk about any subject. But it came to the curriculum and the materials that I was presenting them with, there was a lack of engagement, not the level of interest that I would like to see. And so that coincided with my enrollment in a doctoral program where I could really focus on that. So it was interesting because most of the folks in my class were like, well, we're not sure and I came in saying, I might tweak it a little bit, but I'm clear why I'm here. And so, yeah, I know what I want to do. And so over the last several years, I have really honed in on, I would say last 4 or 5 years, I have really honed in on where is this resistance to literacy coming from? Why, where, and what we can do to actually get around that.
Yeah, let me just say this, and Dr. Cherita can attest. That doctoral program will elevate you as far as expertise, and that is something, no one can talk about my topic, no one can talk about Dr. Cherita's topic like we can, because these are the topics that we researched. And so I look forward, right. And so I look forward to seeing you as the expert. You are becoming the expert of this very topic, and that's pretty exciting to see. But we'll talk more.
Okay.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
All right. So when a teen boy is disengaged from reading, what are you actually seeing? Like not the behavior itself, but what's underneath it?
Um, let me give you an example that I think will address that. A coworker of mine said to me a couple of days ago, "Did you see the interview on television where they were interviewing some African American male teens who had been part of, in different areas they use different terms, but it's, like a teen takeover or a teen crew or whatever, and it's just like a swarm of teens in a particular place." And his comment was, when they were interviewed, it was almost as if they were speaking a different language.
Mm.
And my comment to him was, in some regards, they are speaking a different language, but it is a language of resistance. And the fact that they are speaking a language that you don't understand gives them a power. It might not be a positive level of power, but it gives them at their age a degree of power that they otherwise feel that they do not have. It is not
Yeah.
that they cannot speak English the way that we would. There is a structure to the words they use. There's meaning to the words that they use, but you don't know what it is. And frankly, it's designed so that you don't know what it is.
Right.
In Africa, words have meaning, but there is also meaning associated with the way words sound and the way words are used to a greater degree than we use in the academic English that we present to our children in school. And so, even to a degree without even knowing it, it is easier for them to fall into a rhythmic storytelling way of communicating. We completely ignore that. We act like that doesn't exist. And they have, again, turned that around to empower themselves to some degree to be able to communicate in a way that others do not understand. The key is to take that structure, to allow them to use that structure, to encourage them to use that structure, and then begin to gradually show them how that can be interspersed or intermingled in what I would say is the primary discourse, the language that we use. We code switch every day.
Right.
They're
Right.
they're not code switching. They're speaking, moving, talking, communicating the way they do, the way that is comfortable with them, and in a language that, quite frankly, they enjoy. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. It doesn't mean that they can't read. In fact, if you look at their patterns of speech, even if you look at, for example, a Jay-Z or any of the more gifted rappers, it is a very complex, sophisticated way of communicating. We as a society just do not acknowledge it. We don't honor it. We ignore it. And so I'm like this silent battle. And for any number of reasons, which would be a whole nother show, our Black male teens are losing that battle. And that has to stop. It has nothing to do with their intelligence, has nothing to do with their ability to read. It has to do with the ways in which they communicate and how we can help them move across a bridge, if you will, knowing that
Right.
sooner or later you're going back across the bridge, and that's okay. But there are times where you're going to have to be on that side of the bridge, and we want you to be able to do that as well.
I think it's interesting because you talked about code switching, and I think we code switch because code switching has to some degree allowed us to have some level of success. And whether that's opportunity, being heard, the young men are not code switching, but it's like this is not the question, but I won't put it out there and say, how do they gain a level of success by not code switching? And so I want to put that out there, but I also want to ask you a question. So keep that, file that, as I know, you can file that away. Maybe we can come back to it.
Okay.
Because I think the connection with the next question about, a young, talk a little bit about, based on what I just said, but talk a little bit about a young man who, you've been able to watch their relationship with literacy shift, right? What changed? What did that look like? And did they experience some success?
Yes, yes, and yes. Key
Okay.
to that process is presenting them with material that has some level of connection.
Mm.
Without that connection, it becomes sort of a struggle. I want you, for example, in many schools, and I am not knocking the K through 12 institution. It is an institution that's designed to perform a particular job. And for the most part, it is doing what it is designed to do. That's a whole nother show about what it's designed to do. But reading Shakespeare in 2026 has its place. Catcher in the Rye has its place. But why can't a young Black male be given the opportunity to read the biography of Malcolm X or Man-Child in the Promised Land? Or if you want to move it into a more current space, The New Jim Crow, or a book by any number of authors, Alexander, for example. There are so many possibilities that exist which would allow our Black males to interact with what is going on in this story, the context of the story.
Mm-hmm.
That children learn to read by looking at words and phonics and symbols, and that's kind of a cyclical thing. Now in America, we're back at the science of reading. So we're looking at phonics and we're matching sounds. But ultimately, the sounds don't make any sense if the child doesn't have a connection to the word when they hear the word.
Mm.
Our children, particularly our male students, are being asked to connect with, they're being asked to read words that when they hear the word, there's still no connection with the word. There's no context. There's no meaning. Can they do it? Yes. As they get older, when they enter those adolescent years, do we expect them to be excited about it? Some are, but more and more every year, they are not. And when you add the whole digital media on top of that, when they have a world of possibilities in front of them and they choose what they want to hear and how it comes to them and what is being said and how it sounds, and they can find the people who talk like them and think like them and write like them. It's difficult to then come back in the classroom and say, I need a 3 to 4 paragraph essay on the power of the Fifth Amendment. Now, if I'm able to spend time with them connecting why the Fifth Amendment is important, why the 13th Amendment is important to you, what that means, and I can get much closer to their language. I can't necessarily use their language,
Right.
get much closer to their language. It piques their interest.
Right.
It is not that they don't understand or they're slow or there's something developmentally wrong, and it's not even that they don't like reading. They love learning. It's what are they learning?
Right.
That's where the resistance comes in. Okay. My male students, and I'm at a predominantly African-American high school, they do love to learn, but what are we giving them and saying, this is what learning looks like. And that's where the disconnect is.
Nice.
This is
The
really
wheels are
interesting.
turning.
It is, because I'm like, okay, I'm not aware of any like specific like research outside of what you're doing related to this, right? But I feel like maybe it's just a natural kind of like you like it makes sense that it would work this way. Because when you look at what the government is doing as it relates to removing certain books from our schools' libraries, and they are books that would speak to our experiences and books that will help us connect to learning and all of that. And we know that there's a reason why they're doing those things. So it has my mind thinking like, well, who's already done this research? Because obviously somebody knows something, because they are being very intentional about making sure that we are disconnected
Right.
from
Right.
from all of this information that would allow us to develop our identities, to be more engaged in the learning process, because we do have connection and context about what this means for us.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just like, so on one hand, I feel like those folks aren't smart enough to know that, but at the same time, we see these things happening. So I don't know. There's not even really a question in there. I'm just like, my mind is just going, just like it's
No,
a lot deeper than what we think.
There have been a number of researchers, I would say, in the past, maybe 30, 35 years, who have examined this whole Black male adolescence with regard to literacy. Agbu, Tatum. I mean, I could throw out words, critical race theory, Ladson Billings. It's one of the reasons why critical race theory, for those people who have some idea of what they're talking about before they decide that they don't want it to exist, but it really has to do with making people aware of the structural approach of racism, not that it's something that you see somebody do, but that it is inherent in the structure of our society. And so this is knowledge that you don't, how do I want to say this politely? This is knowledge that we should not be surprised that other people don't want us to have, nor can we continue to expect other people to provide that for us.
Right.
Other Asian children go to schools that focus on their Asian traditions, their history. They may be in a public school Monday through Friday, but on Saturday, often they are at a community center or a church, and they're going through their traditions and their history and their heritage. Jewish children from a very small age, okay? That's what we do. At some point, we get together and we learn who we are, we learn our history, we have a ceremony that announces to the world that we are men. There are things that we receive as the benefit from being a man in the Jewish tradition. We are one of the few societies that expect our colonizers to support our growth. And that, we've got to, we own some accountability around that.
You should just stop right there. Just let that, let me look and just let that seep in for a second. Because it takes a lot of courage to, and I don't know that you or any other researcher realizes it, but in 2026, it takes a lot of courage to further this kind of research, this information, and then act on it by applying it to the lives of young Black men. That empowerment.
You have to remember, though, again, going back to our legacy, we are a community-oriented, community-driven people. And so what I'm talking about is not something that can clearly it can't solely be taught in public school. And again, I'm not knocking public school. I work in a building with hardworking, good-intentioned, running on not enough sleep, grading papers till the wee hour of the morning. We're doing what we can do to help raise the level of our students.
Yeah.
But it is still an institution, and it is an institution over which we have a limited amount of power.
Right.
The largest amount of power when it comes to literacy and Black children is in their home.
In the community, in the home.
It's in their homes.
In the home, okay.
It's the community is a part of it, but it is in the home where when you tell children to bring in a book about Dr. Martin Luther King, and the student says later, after everybody's left, you have a book for me because we don't have any books in our house. That's a no-no. You're having a conversation about Dr. Martin Luther King. I'll harp on him. And the student raises their hand, and this is a high school student, and says, I'm talking about an event that's coming up, and the student raises their hand in like 2024 and says, is he going to be there?
Wow. Wow.
Okay. And again, I kind of try and make a joke of it. I'm like, well, both of us won't be there. Either he'll be there or I'll be there, but the two of us will not be at the same event. That's not going to happen. But inside, you're saying to yourself, how do you not know that? And casting blame doesn't get us anywhere. It is more now, I see myself as providing tools to empower parents. And it doesn't have to be anything grandiose, but just maybe twice a week you schedule, or you can write it down on a calendar, or maybe you just say to yourself, we talked about what's going on in the world on Monday. A lot of stuff has happened since Thursday. Darn, let me get in here and have this conversation. Right. It doesn't have to be something that's earth-shattering, that is going to take hours of your time. But we have to give particularly young Black males an opportunity to experience the world in a different way and to acknowledge what they're experiencing and they connect it to the larger world. And when we don't do that, that's when we see those behaviors and that resistance sort of amps up. Right. Because they know that there is a divide. They know that what is comfortable for them, what works for them, the way they talk, the way they move, they know that is to a large degree looked down on, considered less than. And so the way to get around that is not to, you shouldn't look like that. You shouldn't. And sometimes I'm guilty of that myself. Quite frankly, sometimes it's like, what is on your head, or something. But the issue is larger than that. The issue is giving them tools to reflect their experiences and to acknowledge that you are smart, you are bright, you know exactly what you're talking about. Again, a lot of what they do is very complicated in terms of literacy, because they have a structure to what they're saying. But let's make sure that you know what that is. And then let's begin to show you how to connect that, so that when at the end of the school year, somebody says to you, you have to write a 3-paragraph narrative response about freedom and democracy, you know exactly how to do that. Is yours going to sound, are you going to start talking about George Washington and the founding fathers? Maybe it's not. Maybe you're going to talk about an event that took place in the South. Maybe you're going to talk about the civil rights movement. But you are going to be able to present that in such a way that it shows that you still know the norms that currently we need in this society to move forward. And that's the piece that's missing.
So,
Yeah. There is a village in Africa, and I want to say Ghana or Tanganyika, and I tell this often, I should make a point to know the country. But there's a village where when a male child is born, all of the villagers come in front of the home and they begin to craft a song that is unique and special for just that child. And the song speaks about the power within that child, what they hope the child will become, the gifts maybe that they hope that child will internalize. It speaks life into the child. It might be a day old, less than a day old. The amazing part about that is that as that child grows, and as adolescent males will do, starts to wander off track, maybe not doing necessarily what should be done, that same group of villagers will then come back to wherever that young man is living and sing his song because they are reminding him of who he is. One of the probably the most powerful exercise I've ever done in teaching was I had a conversation about that very same activity, and I had my students write their song. And it was, and I just kept encouraging them through that. I still have people who are out of college who come to me when I see them and they say, I remember my song. And nobody ever asked me to write like that. But the thing is, was it written perfectly? No. Was it written with periods or where they were supposed to be in that? No. We can clean that up, but we've got to give them a place to be authentic and to own their power. And when we do that, they'll want to do the rest. They love learning. We just have to acknowledge what you know and the fact that there's nothing wrong with how you communicate. You are perfect in the way that you communicate at this juncture. We've just got to do some things so that, again, in terms of code switching, when you get over here, you can pass muster. But we can't do that by denying who they are. African American males, for example, and African Americans in general, we have a rhythm, we have a sound, there's certain ways that we say things that nobody else is able to say, but our children don't see that reflected anywhere. And we've got to give them a place to be able to do that and honor that. I'm sorry, I get kind of.
That's right.
I guess what I was thinking about, you said some good stuff there. And I think that when you think about home, I want to go back to that it starts at home. What should parents start doing? What should parents stop doing? To change if there's a lack of feeling empowered through language, or there's a disconnect. You know, you talked about the young man or the example of someone not having a book in the house, right? What are some things that parents can do starting at home to empower their young males through literacy?
Feeling like I'm going out on a limb here, but one of the things that can be done is to empower their voice. Because literacy, talk about literacy, we think about reading and writing, but it's really just, it's language. And so many of our young Black teens feel they don't have a voice because they're not allowed to express that. So giving them, as appropriate, however it works in your house, but giving them the opportunity to give voice to their feelings. Over time, begin to insert writing as a tool in the home. A couple of years ago, and I realized that these are things that are going out of style, so to speak. So when I say write, if they want to type, that's fine. But thought to paper or computer or tablet, something, but getting those words out of your head and onto something tangible.
Yeah.
Having those, making sure that some kind of conversations are being held. All of that is language. And that's really what literacy is. Literacy is just language. And acknowledging the language that your teen uses. If correction is needed, you do that, but then you substitute what is inappropriate with different words, but you don't kind of shut it down and say, I don't know what y'all are talking about, or I don't understand how you're doing that. That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand that rap stuff. And oftentimes we don't say that, but that's what's going on in our head. But it's really conversation. It's in the words, the less you are listened to, the less you will speak. And if you don't speak, those skills begin to atrophy. And you will be surprised sometimes at asking a student to write something, and they will say, I don't have anything to write. And then you just drop a little word here, drop a little word there, come back.
Kind of coach them through.
Kind of at real, coach them through. And when they finally feel like they've been given permission, bam, they're on it. And then you're like, really? You weren't going to write this down? You just were going to sit there?
Right.
It's not a part of it. It hasn't been a part of their world.
Yeah.
And that's, parents really have to help expose them to the power of their voice, which includes reading and includes not accepting one-word answers all the time. You're asking questions and the baby says no, and then they're done. Well, why? Let's follow that up with everybody is sort of in a tailspin about the world in which we live, but it doesn't mean that we can ignore it. There are countless opportunities to talk with our teens about what is going on in the world. Doesn't have to be long, past 10 minutes.
Right.
The more you give them an opportunity to speak and they hear their voice and they own their voice, it is a natural progression to want to write that down in some tangible form. And then you can begin to, you'll see that engagement.
That's good. That's good.
So there's a narrative that Black boys, regardless of age, really, and maybe not even just our Black boys, but our Black children in general, and reading just don't mix. And I don't know if you all saw the video clips of the I think they were high schoolers, and one guy gave the card or piece of paper, something to the other students to read, and it had just regular words on it. And most of them did not pronounce the words on the card.
I saw that.
And, some folks made it an indictment of the school system, right? Which, to an extent, it's like, okay, well, like, how are you in
How'd you
ninth
get
grade
this far? Right.
know how to read the word terrific or something like that? Because they were not like extremely hard words.
Right.
And then for some, it was an indictment on the parents. And then for some, it's just that's Black kids, that's Black people, and they're not smart and they don't care and all of that. And I know that you've already spoken to this to a certain extent, but just say some more about this idea that Black boys or Black children in reading, like almost like this belief that almost like we're incapable, right? That we are not as intelligent as that there is no interest in.
Right.
What is the real truth that exists there?
Couple of things, and I'll try and keep it brief. Reading again is there are a lot of theories, but I believe that reading is just as much a social process as it is a cognitive process. And so we assume, and I'll use this as an example, we assume that when we give a student a card and it has the word, I think you said terrific, we assume that is part of that student's language. Probably an assumption, depending on the student, that we shouldn't make. But if we were to write on a card the way the student communicates or the language that he or she is used to, they would be able to read that from start to finish with no problem. We would. It's language reading is based on, obviously there's a science to it, there's a cognitive portion to it, but none of it makes sense until a little reader recognizes that if I put these 2 or 3 sounds together, I get this word. But they generally know what that word is. Our students often don't know what the word is. So putting the 2 or 3 sounds together doesn't generate the results we'd like to see, because it's like mixing, when I don't play dominoes, but I watch them, and you're sort of mixing things around. You don't know when you've gotten the right pair because the word is not part of your lexicon. It means nothing to you. A lot of times I will write instructions on the board, and I teach 10th grade, and then I will read it, and then I will go sit down because okay, we're good. I'm going to give you 15, 20 minutes to do that. And then one by one, I notice people are at my desk saying, what does that mean? That's my clue that that's not in your lexicon. And I can't afford to judge that. It just means that in the house in which you come from, nobody uses that word. That's fine.
Right.
That's here. Let me handle that word. And then they will remember it. And they do. Then next time they see it, they will know how to read it. But it really is, to some degree, almost like being given a card to read a foreign language and then being deemed slow or ignorant because you can't read this foreign language. Our job is to make the language more inclusive so that our students are not the other thing. I do want to say this, particularly African American male students, in the face of making a mistake, will be quiet. More so than any other group I've seen. If it looks like I worked with a student the beginning of the school year, and I was actually working with him on reading miscues. And he would read a section, and then I would determine what the miscues were, and did he try and substitute a word. Oftentimes, they will substitute a word because it's important to them that they not be wrong. It's important to them that they not be seen as not being able to read. But because, again, the word is not one they've heard, not one they've necessarily seen, they may get it right or they may not. And that student I chose because I knew that he would take that risk. But a lot of our students are just going to be quiet when they're faced with a word. Unfortunately, all of those symptoms and those behaviors have been lumped together as they're slow or they don't read well. Well, it's what you're asking them to read is part of it. Now, because we know that our students have to survive in the real world, you can't go to a job and say, well, I don't know how to read that, but I know how to read this. It doesn't work.
Right.
What we have to do is they have to walk in an authority almost, that if I don't know a word, it is okay, but every day I'm adding to the words that I know. All of the words that we read and we expect our students to know are found in what are called literary classics. They're also found in African American literature. It's just which one did you present the child with?
Right.
And if you present a child with something that is familiar to him or her, understandably, they're going to be more engaged. After a while, that sequence of putting those sounds together comes easily. You asked that question, and that is a very difficult question for me and one I struggle with because I was never taught to read. I just learned to read at 3. And so for me, that's a struggle because a lot of times I have to pull back because I don't do it anymore, but like 5 or 6 years ago, my thinking was, well, why can't you read that? You're 14, you're 15, you should be able to read that. But it is not that simple because I realized that I was able to read because of the words around me. And our children, we have to create a word-filled environment for our babies. We have to communicate with them, and we have to stop talking and let them communicate so that it becomes a conversation. And that's what I would encourage parents to do. And I also strongly encourage parents to not depend on the traditional school system to give your son everything that he needs in terms of reading and writing and communicating and thinking. If you've ever known, a lot of times people come out of prison, and they're quoting this and quoting that and quoting this and quoting that, and I read this and that's because they had the time. They didn't really have much else to do. And that's because as they began to do it, it was empowering to them. And that's the joyful part about working with young Black males is that as they become empowered, it is an amazing thing to see. But we have to create an environment for them to do that.
It's good. So tonight, or for those who will watch, for the parents who are watching, who don't know where to start, they've heard what you shared and they're like, okay, where do I begin? What's the first and honest conversation that they need to have? And who do they need to have it with?
First honest conversation is really an internal conversation. No blame, no shame, no anything. This is good information to have. I want my baby to be able to do well, to succeed, to be successful, to grow, to kind of have the world open in front of him. And so never really thought about it that way, but I'm going to have to, words are going to have to mean more in my house. That doesn't cost anything. That's free. And
Yeah, that's
so
good.
whenever you think of it, have a conversation, ask questions, and then say, okay, I'm going to give you for just 10 minutes before you do Google or AI. Let's just talk about what the answer could be. Buy a book here, buy a book there, but it doesn't even have to be about buying books. Just encourage and uplift your son. Call the school or write the teacher an email or whatever and say, what books are you using that apply to African American males? I think that might help so and so a little bit better. I think he might be more attracted to that. What are you using? Oh, I have some suggestions. You should use this. But give yourself power to get in the conversation. My website is not. I can't stand websites because you're always mixing and it's. I love websites, but it's painful because it never quite looks the way you imagined it would look in your head. But I will say this: if anyone is listening and they send me an email at literacy at yourwordisbond.com, I will be glad to send them a free info sheet that just lists the top 5 books. They know their child better than I do, but a list of the top 5 books that just pick one. Get it from the library. You don't even have to buy it. At the school. The school library probably has a copy. In fact, I bet money school library has a copy. It might be sitting there because no one might be using it. And just flip a page, any page. You read something to yourself. You can have a conversation about that. Your child doesn't have to know that you only read 3 pages. That's okay. You get in where you fit in, but make conversation, make language a part of the world in which you move, and honor the conversation and the language that they have, because they really do have an authentic way of communicating. It's just that it's not being recognized.
Yeah, that sounds that idea of being intentional and in a busy world, fitting that into your household culture will matter. Right? It will make an impact. Yeah.
Again, it doesn't have to be long. I'm talking 10 minutes because I think, again, I've raised 2 boys and you hustling and you got to go to work and then you got to do this and you got to do, and did you do your homework? And so once you ask the, did you do your homework question, you're like, oh, we're good. You did your homework, but just honor their voice, honor their voice, ask questions, become involved in conversation, and just think of things that you can maybe just drop around the house to read and then talk to them about it. But I'm not saying you say for 2 hours every Thursday, I want you to read 20 pages. That's probably not going to go that well in 2026, at least in the beginning. It start from the power and the authority that they already have. We just need to legitimize it. And then it's easier to start in the rules of grammar and those sorts of things. Nobody teaches grammar anymore in public schools for the most part. Most students, grammar is a little bit off, black and white. But you can always fix that. They'll want to fix that once they begin to become engaged in what they see as their view of the world. And I guess that's really what I want to say. We have to honor their view of the world with words and find some time to do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it is really, really good. I like the simplicity of literacy as language. And that need to help them find their voice, because if they don't feel that they have one, there's nothing to say. There's nothing to
right.
Because you don't want to hear what I have to say anyway. You don't think that my thoughts are valuable. And I think it can be as simple as, like, again, with everything going on in the world, like how many of us are actually talking to our children about what's happening in the world, asking them what they think about it, what they feel about it, or do we assume because they're children that they're not really touched by it, like that they're not aware of it? This is just an adult kind of thing, you know, that they don't have their feelings about it.
Absolutely.
And then that piece about like this certain words not being words that they hear being used. So like, how would they know how to read it if they're not using it or never heard it? I was thinking about like the opposite of that. We talked about, I think it was in the last episode when I was talking about cursing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Like how, like a lot of children now, obviously there's some children out there who curse and their parents don't know that they curse, right?
That's right.
But it's the same with adults too. It's like I see that as a language issue, because I'm just like, you don't have a better way to communicate,
right?
Use curse words, like, because I can cuss you out without ever using a curse word.
Exactly.
You know, there's that same thing. If that's what they hear, that's the language that's being used to express yourself, then that is how they're going to express themselves. So when they're expressing themselves like that at school or at the mall or something, when somebody said or did something to them that they didn't like, it's like that's what they know. So that's what they do. So if we model it something different, then that's what they'll display
over time. That we can to pick that up. Yeah, I am often in the hallway saying, you guys know two adjectives, bleep and bleep bleep. And it doesn't matter what it applies to. Those are the two adjectives that you guys pull out. I'm gonna need you to level up a little bit. Give me something a little bit better than bleep bleep. And they kind of laugh. And then sometimes they'll catch themselves and look at me and use a different word. But I just want them to be mindful. And then sometimes, depending on what they've done, I'm like, Lord, okay, excuse me. Let me breathe. But they may not do it all the time. But again, it's continuously planting that seed that there are other words. There are words that are more specific. There are words that are not debasing people. There are words that show that you have a better hold on your vocabulary. But that's an iterative process. It has to keep doing that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation.
Indeed.
Yeah. Now, it has my mind going about what did I do with my boys? And some of the things I got right, but then some of it's like I could have done more of that. Exactly. But my youngest is he just, if he want to talk to you, he'll talk to you, and if he don't, he's like, whatever. I ain't think about y'all. The other two will talk. They have their perspectives and their opinions on things, and they will share them, which is great. But I'm glad that they were not born any farther along in the timeline than they were. I think it's harder now to be a parent of a younger child.
We were just talking about that. As my husband and I are doing a topic on parenting, and we're just talking about when our kids were born, and some of the challenges versus the challenges that parents have now. Yeah. And it isn't just about the technology and digital native. We were talking about digital native versus digital immigrant, but AI is a whole different digital beast. And I just, and the influence, right? So what's the influence? Yeah. What is influencing their language? That's a whole nother show, but
that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
The feeling that I don't really have to focus on language because I can just go over here to AI and get it. And then I'm walk me through the last 2 sentences. And then the head drops. And I'm like, baby, it doesn't matter. I really need your words. I'm not looking for perfection. Because perspicacity doesn't mean anything to you. And I have to think about it for a second. So let's pull that paper. And let's write what you have to say. Yeah, a lot going on. There is.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. So, Alexis, please just share again your email address for those who would like to get a hold of your resource.
literacy@yourwordisbond.com. And that's literacy. Let me model what I've been talking about. LITERACY @yourwordisbond.com.
All right. Awesome. All right. So if you're tuning in live or watching the replay, I just want to leave you with the thought that the investment you make in your son's ability to read, to think and express himself is more than a school assignment. It is really a life assignment, because the boy who learns to articulate who he is becomes a man who can hold his ground and speak his truth and build something that lasts through the power of his ability to communicate and interact with his world. And that work starts at home. We might want to believe that it is the school's responsibility, but it starts at home. So we need to do our part to ensure our children, our boys, not just survival in the world, but their ability to thrive in the world. And a lot of that comes through communication and the ability to do so effectively. So thank you, Alexis. And
yes,
I could not share the date yet that will be the next episode, because we're going on summer hiatus. Yes. Because me and Malaika need to go to a couple beaches.
We need to hit some brown sand, white sand, black sand, pink sand. I don't care. We need to hit one.
Something. Yeah. So we are going on summer hiatus, and we will be back in September with new episodes for you. And if you are a business owner, or have an expertise or even an experience that you think our audience would benefit from hearing about, you can visit thecoachesrn.com and submit the form to be a guest on the show. And we would love to have you. You know, we have fun on here. We love the conversation and the laughs and all of that. So we would love to have you join us on the show as a guest. And I think that probably does it, Malaika.
I think that's it. That's it. I was going to say, whether you have an experience or you're an expert. Yes, we'd love to talk to you. Yeah. But it's time to hit the sand. All right. All right now.
All right. So we will see you in September. Thank you again, Alexis.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
The coaches are in. When you need a timely, transparent friend, tune into the coaches are in. Talking career, business, health, and wealth. You got a friend now into the coaches are in.